Hello and welcome to Zero to Hero. Today we're going to be talking about intentionality as an entrepreneur. The soft skills of entrepreneurship and life, they can be somewhat subjective and ambiguous, but just because they're hard to nail down doesn't mean that they're any less important to master. In fact, intentionality is the key to making sure that all pieces of your business and really your life are heading in the right direction. So to start us off, I have a question for you guys. What does it mean to be intentional as an entrepreneur, and why is it important?
I think it's all about intention, but really
Defining the word with the word.
Yeah, it's my
Classic.
specialty. I think it comes down to doing things in a way that tells people that you see them and care about them, and that they're not just some cog or just some number. We referenced unreasonable hospitality in our last episode when we talked about books, and it is the most holistic capturing of intentionality for businesses that I've ever read. And the line that stuck out that we talked about last time as well is it's not about one size fits all, it's one size fits one. And very small things can have incredible impact when it's just like the perfect thing for them. So we talked about the hot dog idea, but yeah, I think it's just taking, like, being aware, listening, taking in information that matters to someone and figuring out how you can deliver it to them and just make them feel valued.
Nice. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I think that Chris really hit the nail on the head. That's a very great description. But I think something that would be good to add to it is following the customer journey and understanding what the process looks like for them and ways they can make every step of them using your service or buying your product as enjoyable as possible, and just finding new ways they can add value for them.
I love that you brought in the customer journey on that. That's something that I love thinking about, but wasn't where my head was. For me, I think it comes down to, on business, there's like the machine side of what are you doing, and then what are the numbers and all that stuff. And then there's the people side, both customers as well as employees. And I think intentionality as an entrepreneur is looking at both sides of those and having a vision for where you want them to end up, both in the long term, but also having a vision for how you get there. Gary Vee talks a lot about it's just as important or maybe more important to like how you make your money than if you make your money. And I think that's having that vision, long-term and short-term vision on both sides of that, both in terms of externally with customers and also internally with employees, and then same with how the numbers and machine interplays with that.
I don't think that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, but the concept of conscious capitalism has a lot to do with that, and just the intentionality of decisions that you make as a business, because a lot of businesses are bottom line oriented and will sacrifice people and values and whatever it takes to make the most money in the short term. Whereas there's the alternative, which is to sacrifice the money in the short term for the people and the values and everything in the long term in the culture. And I think that is a part of intentionality too, that it takes it makes you have to make that decision. You have to do it intentionally, because it's not what's taught. It's not what comes naturally to a lot of people. It hurts at first, and we're about 5 years in, it's still hurting now, but there's, little snapshots of things that's like, okay, it's worth, going through the pain now, because these are the results that we get. So that's kind of more on the internal business side, but I think a lot of what we'll talk about today is more customer oriented. But
yeah. Can you both share a personal anecdote or experience where being intentional significantly impacted your entrepreneurial journey? And that could be results focused, or it could just really be, that internal story of yourself. Or put another way, this is another way to approach it, is to think about where were times in your business journey where you were being unintentional, even if you didn't mean to, it wasn't on purpose, but you're being unintentional, and kind of the currents and the waves of just life and business and entropy took you in a direction you didn't actually love. And then you were able to course correct by being intentional.
I think HiveThink might be a good example of this. When we started HiveThink, we wanted to be a marketing agency because we had always wanted to do that. It sounded fun. And it had its fun parts, very small, but it had them. And we quickly discovered that our passion wasn't in the work of a marketing agency, but the results. And we figured out that the people we wanted to work with, typically it was a better case to teach them how to do it themselves rather than do it for them, because that comes with a higher price tag. So HiveThink's pivoted a lot over the last few years, and we finally came to the realization that everything that we wanted to do with people and to interact with them could be done in our own little community building or networking quote unquote event called Coffee Break. And we got to kind of make a space where we could be super intentional about how people feel walking in the doors, about the sustenance provided, the speakers. It's completely local. We have the local artist, musician, nonprofit resource. And it's like everyone is curated to be the most value and impact possible. And we've facilitated even just like the conversations and the mindsets for everyone that walks through the doors. And this conversation was inspired because so many people have said of how intentional that event is. And so I think it wasn't that we were unintentional necessarily with Hive thing. I guess we were, because we just weren't as intentional as we are now. But now we're trying to be, how can we be incredibly intentional? How can we had our own branding figured out, like we've talked about in the past. It was like Gig City Networking. And then we said, you know what? We would tell someone else to ask the people that you're trying to serve what they would want. So we rented out Fiamma. It was a local business that we supported. We invited a select group of people that we knew would have really valuable insight from all sects of like industries and, types of business and non-business stuff. And we just asked them a bunch of stuff and let them just tear us apart. And they did in the best way possible. And it went from Gig City Networking to Coffee Break. And that intentionality, I think, is why we can be as successful as we are with Coffee Break now. We've only done 3 events, but they've been some of the funnest, most fun events that I've ever taken part in. And we've had people that are, serial networkers that have come up to us and been like, whatever you guys have figured out, this is it. Like, how can we do that for our own stuff? So I don't know. That's a good example on my end.
Yeah, you got something for us?
Yeah, I do. I think that, and I can't speak for Dylan since he is not here, but this is something that we are facing right now with the Green Eyes Festival, is as we are rolling out merchandise and we're actually starting to make the festival turn into like a real business, we are having to ask a lot of questions to ourselves about what we want our goals to be from like a financial standpoint. And when we started the festival, the intention was just to make something fun and cool that, we would have a good time at. And we definitely have had those moments where now that there's money involved and now that like it's a bit more real and we have other people asking us about it, where we have those moments of, okay, well, with selling this merchandise, do we focus on profit or do we focus on getting out to more people? Do we focus on making it as easy as possible for us to be able to deal with it, or do we make it easier for our customers to be able to deal with it? So that's a lot of stuff that we're kind of tackling right now, and we have to have those reminders sometimes of, okay, our goal here is just to make something awesome that shows off the folklore of our area and pays homage to our hometown. So we have a lot of those conversations right now, it feels like.
That's a great example. Yeah, you're in the throes of it, where your ideas and your beliefs are being tested moment to moment, and you have that dilemma to choose every single second.
I know.
That's really fun and not really painful for me because I'm just looking on the outside. It's really cool to see it happening, and I'm glad that I keep seeing you guys make good decisions.
Thank you.
When you're coming at those crossroads.
It's been some where we're like, you guys have been crushing it.
Yeah, it's really great. For me, I think the biggest thing is just looking at my creative journey. I've gotten a lot quicker at telling it, but if you guys don't know, music was my life, my career, my whole business for multiple years, most of my 20s. And then I had a crazy jaw ear thing happen and I couldn't do it anymore. And so on the journey of figuring out what to do next, I was very intentional that I wanted to do something, but I realized I was very unintentional when it comes to making sure that it matched every part of my soul. Like Chris talks about, start with why, that it really, my why was correct, that my why was intentional. And so for a long time, it was like I was trying things that I enjoyed, but I was doing them in a way that was very like the hardcore business person of creativity. I'm going to use this creative skill and I'm going to make money doing XYZ freelance commission things. But I hated commission and freelance. And the thing is, like, I'm an artist at heart and I'm a teacher at heart. Those are the two things that are the most genuine that come out of me. And so now I'm finally at this place where I can see in hindsight, wow, now I'm really being intentional. I'm learning to do animation, which has always been like the big dream, to tell my own animated stories. And essentially that means that I have to fully commit to that. And some of the like hardcore business things, I can still consider them. I'm still going to figure out how to make money over time, but it's not the number one goal. Like right now, the goal is to become awesome and to like have fun doing it and practice generating content in a way that feels good so I could do it for the rest of life. And then that means money is going to go a little bit slower because this is the focus. But that intentionality now is making me really enjoy every part of the process. And I fully feel like, yeah, I could do this till I die, which hopefully is a long time from now. You see lots of movies from me. But yeah, it's a whole different ballgame. Okay, how can entrepreneurs define their core values and their purpose to guide their intentions?
Start with why and then find your why.
Done. Next question.
Yeah. No, I think so. In Find Your Why, which is the sequel book to Start With Why, they make a point to specify that when you're trying to develop your why, that you don't actually ask your closest friends and family. They actually say that it should be someone that's slightly removed from your day-to-day, because it can be biased somewhat if it is someone you're really close to, like a spouse, family member, best friend. So they kind of suggest finding a good friend, but not a great friend. And don't tell the person this because it might offend them. You're a pretty good friend. Do you want to do this? But no, and kind of asking them, hey, what do you think that I stand for? Like, what do you think is what I'm passionate about? And then the whole book is a workbook. But I think personally, it kind of comes down to some really hardcore introspection and reflection and figuring out, why do I do stuff? Like, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, why are you doing it? It's not easy. It's not always rewarding. Why are you doing it? If you're, middle management or, a sales guy or whatever, why are you doing it? And sometimes the why for your job is literally just, I'm trying to make money so that I can support my family, who is my why, or so that I can have time to go on vacation, which is a part of your why or whatever. But I think if you keep asking that question, what is the purpose? What is the heart of this? Eventually you'll come to this undividable core truth of just what in essence you are, like your own atom or molecule. Some people, it's you just really believe in justice or fairness. Some people are you really believe that everyone deserves the chance to eat a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, it could be literally anything, but a lot of times it comes down to something that maybe you didn't have as a kid or something that you wanted more of, and then now you are the person providing the thing that you missed out on. So, and it could have been to yourself, it could be something that you saw, and it just is something that's so integral to your own being and your personality that now you are the kind of spokesperson or prophet for that feeling. So, and yeah, you just kind of put it into words, and a lot of times your business is already doing it. You just don't realize it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the whole idea of you're probably already doing this to some degree, but once you identify it, then you can be more intentional with drawing that out and expressing that all over the place with your business and life.
Express it all over the place.
All over the place. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, so I definitely view it similar to Chris in that I think your business is kind of an extension of yourself. It's taking an element of you and what you're about and taking it to that extreme of, you're so crazy in love with this idea and you want people to get out to the world is kind of how I view things. And I see that as being the driving focus that a lot of people should have. Like Chris is saying, focusing on your why, and your why doesn't have to be hyper specific, or hyper focused on making money and the financial side or anything like that. Like Chris said, it can be as simple as just, I love chocolate. I have such a sweet tooth. Maybe I'm going to be a chocolate maker or something like that.
Yeah, I love that. Truth doesn't have to be complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It can be simple. Yeah, I think for me, the way I went about it was I figured out what wasn't my why. And then I essentially tried so many doors in this giant room full of different doors that I realized I was just process of elimination, cornering my why and my purpose. And then essentially at some point, there was nothing left except for that. And maybe that's not the most efficient way of figuring out your why, but for whatever reason, that was the way that it had to work for me. And I think along that journey, what I actually started doing was on the positive sides of things, even if it wasn't my total why, it was just here's a tiny truth about myself and how I want to show up in the world. And if I realized this thing kept showing up, I was like, let me put a pin in that. Let me actually nail that one down on the board and say, this is a part of me that is non-negotiable, and actually write it down. And then the things that I don't like or don't want to be a part of or never want to do again, like I did, this thing, I never want to do it again. Also putting a pin in that and saying, okay, I learned these core mini truths about myself, and these core mini like negative truths about what I don't want to do. And over time, that becomes this menagerie that starts to look like the picture of your why. And so for me, I literally made like a document in my Notion that's like Mike's guide. I think it was like Mike, yeah, the guide of Mike or something like that, where I literally have all these like rules for myself. It's not just like I came up with rules today for myself, but it was like I discovered these like internal rules that I already had. And then now that gives me a better idea of filtering decisions. Like literally when I look at something, I'm like, how do I be intentional with decision? Well, intentional with this decision, I literally am like, does it hit this part of the checklist or not? And it's really easy to filter a lot of things that way.
I think too, sometimes if you can't figure out your own why for whatever reason, finding someone else or another organization that you super vibe with, and then either deep diving into why you vibe with them or just like joining their team or tribe or organization, whatever it looks like, that's a viable option too. Like Be the Change Youth Initiative, their why is insanely cool, like their vision statement, mission statement, whatever. And like, I'd probably die for that entire family because of all the goodness they're putting into the world. And like finding groups like that or nonprofits or businesses or people that just exemplify or personify whatever you just innately agree with, that's a really good way to either see what you care about or figure out, okay, how can I put my own take on whatever they're doing?
I love that. And I think that nicely actually segues into the next question, which are what are some practical strategies or techniques for incorporating intentionality into daily entrepreneurial activities? And so that sounded like a really intentional activity to discover your why. And so now I pose to you, what are the daily little things of how you can be intentional?
Yeah. So the whole time Chris is saying that, I'm kind of thinking like he kind of has like a what would be the change do kind of rule. And I definitely also find myself doing that with Be Caffeinated and things that we're working on, where a lot of times we're faced with like, that sudden thing that you just couldn't expect to happen, or some little fires popped up and you're going like, oh gosh, how do I deal with this? And I think genuinely being able to have those like step back moments of like, okay, what are we about? And use that as like your guiding line is super valuable to just go like, if Be Caffeinated was like a person, what are like their core things? What would their reaction be to the situation? Would they be freaking out and saying like, no, you can't do this, and slamming the window on this customer? Or would they be going like, okay, cool. We're here to make people happy. We're here to cultivate kindness. Here's a free drink coupon or whatever is needed to do to resolve this and make sure that person's happy.
Yeah. What's our 4 facets?
They are cultivate kindness, foster community, be happy, be caffeinated.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was
You passed, Nate.
Thank you.
Yeah. We almost 3 years ago, I think at this point, we had an employee day where we took over Downside Up, their space at the time, and all of our employees were there. And we just did this activity that was like, hey, why do you like working here? What makes you excited to work at Be Caffeinated? What do you think makes Be Caffeinated different? What makes us us? And we wrote it all down, broke into groups and stuff. And then we were like, what out of those, what are the different categories that we can kind of fit them into? And then we had another session after we did that with another class that we did where we came up with better apt verbiage around it and landed on the 4 facets of, foster community, cultivate kindness, be happy, be caffeinated. And like Nate was saying, now when we're making a decision and we're not sure and we're like, start with it, it's like, well, it doesn't help right now. We can run it against those 4 questions. Does it foster community? Does it cultivate kindness? Does it make someone happy? And does it make them caffeinated? And if it doesn't do any of those, then probably shouldn't do it. If it only does one of those, like, okay, is that something that we want to do? Is it something we want to, everything comes with a cost. Is the opportunity cost of doing this getting in the way of something else? I mean, just kind of following that track. And so, like you said, if I'm not around to make a decision, Doug's not around to make the decision, then like the next line of people can make it and do, what would Be Caffeinated do to hopefully make at least the same general decision as anyone else would in the organization. So.
Yeah, I feel like we literally kind of face a situation like this today with the Green Ice Festival. And this is happening a lot where you have those moments of like, okay, we made a mistake or something like that. And right now we're at the stage of the festival where we really need every dollar we can get. We need all the support that we can get. And something happens and now someone's ordered some merchandise we don't have available, or that they were charged the wrong amount. And we easily could jump to the conclusion of like, well, that sucks for them, but we need to make money. So we're going to pull this and, we'll give them a refund and say they can't get that thing. Or, we'll do something else about it versus just going like, who cares? We're going to lose like $5 on this purchase, but someone's going to get, their merchandise and they're going to be super happy and stoked about the festival. And just thinking about like, how can we make sure that like, this is like a no bummers kind of like space where
No bummers.
Yeah. Focus on like making sure people have a good time.
Chattabunga, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're exemplifying here.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think mine is pretty much what you were saying. Like a big thing I ask myself all the time is what would future me do? Since my stuff is I'm just doing solo things. Like, the person I'm really looking up to is like future me, who's already figured this stuff out and has a way of going about it, and it isn't coloring it through the stress of a hard decision in the moment. It's like, yeah, what would be the chill version of what they would do? And I tend to just do that.
Mine was my WW whatever. Mine was WWJD. What would James do? He was my old boss in grad school, and he was just the perfect embodiment of like intentionality, seeing people, letting them know how valuable they were, and professionalism and kindness. Just everything that I thought and still think is incredibly valuable in a leader and is just like a person. And I still do that. I'm like, if I'm having a tough decision, I'm like, what would James have done in this situation? Mm-hmm. Or, when I was his employee, how did he treat me? And most of the time, like at first I was frustrated with things, and then he gave me context and like kind of opened the window so that I could see through his side. I was like, I understand now why you read my emails before I send them to people that you have to work with forever and I only have to work with for the next 10 months. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think finding that, person, company, brand, whatever to mirror after is really cool.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we got some cool ways to be intentional with our daily stuff, but sometimes the bad things, they come in, they distract things, they ruin the flow. So how can people maintain their focus and avoid distractions so they can stay true to those intentions they set and are following?
I'll start with this one. Sometimes you can't. I'm there right now. There's some crazy, stupid stuff that just happens, and I don't know. I think therapy is probably good. I'm on the hunt for one myself. So I think having people on your team and just that, have your back no matter what and being able to talk to them is super important. Just, knowing people are in your corner, being vulnerable when you're comfortable, and like when people say, hey, are you okay? Just be like, no, I'm not actually. When people catch you in your car crying, not trying to hide it, and just be like, yeah, it's a cry day. And they're like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the intentionality there is being intentionally not hiding it, not pretending like it doesn't happen, and just owning, hey, life isn't always great. Sometimes stupid things do happen. Sometimes, something you've worked on for a year just gets ripped out from under you and everything becomes hard again. But I think, knowing why you're doing it helps and trying to push towards that. B, just like putting things in context and the stakes. Like the question I like to ask is, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like genuinely, what's the worst thing that could happen? Minus like a meteor strikes or whatever. But like realistically, what is the worst thing that could happen from this? And worst thing happen, I don't know, business closes. Okay, I do something else. Or somebody loses their job. Okay, we help them find another one. Or, X thing happens. Yeah, but like, is it actually that big of a deal? It'll suck. It's not fun. It's tough. And there's a lot of stuff you'll have to figure out. But that is literally the worst thing that could happen, which means everything else is better than that. And I'm doing a lot of that right now. Just mentally, like, what is the worst that could happen? Because that's probably not what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great tool. That's definitely one I reach for in my own toolbox. I think for me, a big thing I think about, and this really goes to kind of what you were saying at the beginning, and the way I was verbalizing it was survive, then thrive. Like sometimes you are just surviving. And I think the big tool that's helpful on those is if you are so attached to the bad things not happening, it's like truly feels like the end of the world, then the whole time your whole brain is like preoccupied with the fear of that and the pain of the fear of that. Whereas, yes, when you realize that you're in that place of just needing to survive, accepting that and saying, okay, things aren't going the way I want it to go, and like calling that out and saying that's okay because it is what it is, And now I have to act from where I'm at because there's no other choice. And there's something powerful to that for me that just reminds me of like, it also is how I give myself grace with the surviving. It's like, I wish I could be doing X, Y, Z, but this is the reality. And then just saying like, okay, that's all right. There will be a day that comes that I get to do those exciting things without the stress, and it's going to feel awesome. I'll be in that thrive state, but it's okay sometimes to just be in survive.
My big one, and I know I've talked about this before on here because it's something that I just find myself having to do a lot, is the step back and really just looking at things from like a, just mile away view of what actually is the best thing I can be doing right now. And that's where like having those intentional questions can be very valuable. I personally, and some of y'all might be like this too, I'm a very go, go, go kind of person, and a lot of times that can be harmful. It might feel like it's the right thing in the moment for you, because it's like, it's productive, we're getting the thing done. But in reality, like a lot of times you're doing things the hard way and the stupid way instead of the smart way. And the way that's going to like benefit you the most, like it's the, to give like an example to it, it's the, you've lost your phone at the theme park. The smart thing is like, oh, it's probably at the lost and found, should go like there, versus like the Nate reaction would probably be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go walk around, for 2 hours now, staring at the ground, thinking I'm going to find my phone because I'm frustrated, and I have to do something about it, So I think that's important to be able to go like, okay, yeah, bad things are happening. Let's go back away from them instead of jumping to, oh my God, we're going to do these 80 different things that have nothing to do with our brand and go against our core beliefs. And so go like, okay, what can we actually be doing? How is this going to affect us? Kind of like what Chris is saying.
I think it can be likened to a shift as a barista too, which we've kind of talked about, where it's just sometimes get 10 frappes and the drive-thru's packed and the front of house is packed and all this crazy stuff. And to quote the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson, sometimes the most important step is the next one. Like that is the most important step is the next one. Mm-hmm. Just being able to take that. And that's the survival mindset. Sometimes all you can do is take the next step. You can't worry about down the road because right now you just have to worry about staying on the road. And I think that's self-awareness is incredibly valuable when it's not as fun.
Yeah, and I love your example. Like I really enjoyed that, and it made me think about like the little phrase that I came up with was like aim then fire. Like and I feel like if you have that go energy, it's just fire.
Exactly.
Fire.
Yeah.
And it's just
like
the
axe thing too, right? Like
the sharpen the axe. Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, what's that one? I forgot how to say it.
It's like if you are given 10 hours to cut down a tree, you should spend the first 9 sharpening the axe.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
Arbitrary numbers.
Yeah, this is good. This is helpful to me. Thanks, guys. So in what ways can like mindfulness practices, we're talking about the self-awareness, like what kind of mindfulness practices help you in this intentionality with entrepreneurship?
Whiskey.
What's your favorite whiskey?
Chat Whiskey 1816 Reserve.
You heard it.
Yeah. Jesus. Mindfulness to me is trying to understand and be empathetic about like if it is something happening to you because of someone, trying to understand why they're doing what they're doing and put yourself in their shoes. If it is more superfluous or ambiguous, not a person doing it to you, but just something that happens to you, trying to understand like in 2 months, I'll probably not even remember this, or a year or whatever. If it's something you're doing to yourself, kind of trying to work through, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I eating 10 cookies every day? Like, whatever that is. And sometimes it gets into the habits or the environments or stuff. If it's a relationship thing, figuring out, why is this happening in the relationship? Whatever it is, just trying to take a step back and be like, okay, literally start with why. Like, why is this happening? Why are they doing it? Why is this happening? Is this okay? Am I okay? Am I going to survive it? Yeah. The worst thing that, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, just the mindfulness is, I really think it's all about stakes and empathy and context. So
nice.
Did that answer the question? I don't know if it really did.
It felt valuable. So yeah.
Yeah. So mine, I feel like I'm making myself sound like a very angry person on this episode because I immediately think of healthy venting. Like over the past about 6 months now, I've discovered kickboxing. I now go to a kickboxing gym. I think that's super helpful for me, having a space where I can just get out any energy and emotions that I'm feeling. I go on lots of walks and stuff like that. And me and Michael have been kind of sharing this recently at the office. It's just like finding those like useful ways to just get that stress out. I think that that's super helpful. So having like I think physical like aspects is really important. Like having just something that you can like physically go do. That's like, okay, I'm not in work mode right now. This is just, I'm just getting energy out and just something fun I can do that makes you feel better.
Yeah, that's been really huge for me. This morning even, I went to the gym and just got on the elliptical for 30 minutes and watched Demon Slayer, and it was great. And it just, there's like endorphins and whatever when you work out, do some physical activity. But there's also just like the big thing I was noticing, that one of the things we were talking about was just one of the best ways that I found to help myself actually be mindful and then actually be able to recharge when I hit that state is that physical state change of you're sitting in your chair and you're stressed and you're on your phone and you're stressed, and all the things of normal daily modern life stress you out in those ways. And then you just go home and you're often in the same state. You're watching a show instead of looking at your computer, but you're still literally the same positions. And so for me the other day, I went and when I realized this, I was like, okay, let me do an experiment. And I went outside and did a bunch of martial arts. And then I was like, wow, I actually feel better. Like, and it feels like almost like a mind shower. Like it was like, okay, I was in this state and then I did martial arts, and it really felt like day number 2 that was the same day. Does that make sense? I also feel like the same thing if you go home and watch a show. It's like you had a little mind shower that says like, okay, now things are okay.
I think it's like, so I've been reading Atomic Habits, and it talks about the importance of not commingling your space usage as much as possible. So, if you work from home and you have your, desk or your kitchen table that you work at, it's going to be really hard to be creative or to, go into, making dinner mode or whatever. So as much defining and separating spaces as possible, even if you're in a 200 square foot studio apartment, but like, that chair you only read in, that chair you only work in, and that table you only, do your crocheting on, whatever it is really important mentally. And then, like having those healthy coping mechanisms that kind of reset you. Like on Sunday, me and my friend Braden went walking in the park for like 2 hours, and we just went on this little adventure and walked over like a sewer pipeline and kind of broke into this field. Didn't break in. There was no fence. At least the fence.
I know. I've been there.
Yeah. I went on the pier and it was really cool. And it just helped me just get out of whatever fog I was in for the weekends. And, fresh air is always good. And then my wife and I, whenever we're in a weird mood, we watch Bluey, the cartoon. It's our mental health cartoon. Like, if you see us watching it, it either means that we just wanted to watch it or we're like struggling through something right then. But yeah, just finding stuff like that that's healthy. And, sometimes a hard drink is fine. Sometimes it's probably not a good idea. And just examining that. Back to your exercise example. After tearing my ACL, I cannot overstate how much I miss both pickleball and frisbee and just exercising hardly. Not like the hardly, like not at all, but
exercising with vigor,
especially vigorously. And like punching punching bags are the best way to just outlet all of that pent up, whatever it is.
I also have like one more, and I hope it doesn't sound like too strange or anything, but it's just something I've been thinking about lately. I think it's useful to have friends who you don't work with and to make time for social outings with those people. Like, I mean, I love you guys, obviously, and we hang out all the time, and it's great. But there is just that air to it, you know. I think it's valuable that I have members of my friend group who we've never started a business or anything like that together before. That's just never been something we've talked about or anything like that. And anytime that they've even brought that up or anything, or I've brought it up, they've shot it down. And honestly, I'm thankful for that, because it means when we're together, we can genuinely just watch a movie, and there's no oh, hey, just checked our socials, or anything like that. We're just there.
Yeah, it's really hard to turn it off. I saw that trend a lot even in my first job in high school. There were some friends that were friends before we worked at Hastings, the books, entertainment, and movie place that is now closed. But anytime we did a hangout, all the people that worked at Hastings, they would be like, oh yeah, and this the other day. It's really hard to shut that off. So I think you're exactly right. I love you guys as well, and it's awesome to hang out. But it is easy to slip into that, any moment.
I find that when Jasmine, my wife, whatever, she hangs out with her coworkers, especially at her old job that she didn't enjoy very much, they would just get together to escape from it and then just complain about their jobs the whole time. Are you actually getting away from it, or are you just constantly reminding each other about how terrible it is? And so if I ever went and hung out with them, I just got to listen for 2 hours about all the stupid stuff that's going on. Like, this isn't fun for anyone.
Yeah.
You're just mad at the end of it. Yeah, no, I get that. That's super fair.
Yeah. All right. So we've done some great explorations, but I want to get really tactical for different types of people out there. So what are some different like business types that we can give a little ideas or insight for how they might go about being intentional?
Yeah. So an easy one that I think of is if you're doing anything where you're selling like a product, like a market or any other saying like that, is having like really small free things. We've been talking a lot recently about like Patreon offerings and stuff like that. And it always makes you think of like, sneaking in the free sticker or that free little like thank you card and stuff like that. I think that those are little things that are not very hard to do. They aren't very expensive, but can go so far, especially when it's a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think intentionality adds so much value to things like your example with the thank you cards or handwritten notes or whatever. Objectively, it's not valuable. Like it's a piece of paper that someone wrote some words on, but the amount of thought and time, even if it's only 5 minutes, whatever, of that person sitting down and being like, this person deserves this intentional note because of XYZ, whether it's like they supported us or they bought a thing from us, or I just like them, whatever it is. It just makes people feel good. And it's, like you said, not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time. And I will say that there's also the disingenuous portion of it, which is like the ones that look handwritten, but is actually printed.
Oh,
like
okay.
don't do that.
That's the worst. Yeah.
I go from being really excited
good.
to being really mad. And if I'm at all on the fence, I will no longer respect that business or person.
Yeah.
For being honest. Yeah. And then for service things, I think the unreasonable hospitality component of everything that you do is great. Like if you're selling someone a house or, pest control or whatever, going that extra step, if you're a realtor, finding a local artist to do like a little sketch drawing of their house and then having it ready for them when it closes, or pest control, having the little booties for your feet when you walk into their house so that, your shoes don't get their floors dirty, or having like a dog treat if you're a post worker, like a delivery guy for dogs that are there, just the little extra steps that don't matter, but matter more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, our friends over at Anderson Tree, they're really awesome. And one of the things they take the extra step about, and I thought it was just so neat. One, John, like the owner, he came out to our actual house and did like a little audit of our yard and our tree and stuff. And this is totally free, but he came out and he spent like 20 minutes with us, just walking us through everything and then asking if we had any questions. And he was just this wealth of knowledge and was excited to share, and I could feel like his passion. But it was also very intentional, where it was like, hey, there's no upfront stuff. We're going to give you the quotes of everything, like line itemed and what we think is most important, but you don't, there's no commitment. Like you just, I'll walk away and then you just let us know, call us back if you need anything. Like, and that was very intentional, I think, because knowing John from Anderson, like he has a very long-term mindset and he's very people focused, and the intentionality of like, he set that up as the process because that was a process that was going to make people feel like people. And I think that was really neat. And it was a good example for how you can do that as a service person.
I recently had my haircut at Vagabond Barber Co., which is over on like Main and Dodds. And it was an awesome experience. I think the first time I've had my hair cut by not like a Great Clips dynamic since I've been an adult. Like, might be either Great Clips or Sports Clips. And it was awesome. And like, obviously the barber was awesome, it's Dave, but just at the end, he took a towel, he made it really hot, and there was like some eucalyptus or mint, like essential oils on it. He just wrapped it around my head and it was awesome. He didn't even like ask before he did it. He just did it. And I was like, that was delightful. And I still smelled it like 4 hours later. I just get random wafts of like the eucalyptus smell. And it just kind of reminded me constantly the rest of the day how delightful that experience was. And then for later in the day, then when I went, they have just like a free beer that you can have, just drink it while you're there. So just little touches like that, again, don't matter, but they really matter when it comes down to it. So.
Yeah. Over the weekend for my partner's birthday, we went to Naughty Cat Cafe, which I always love going to that place. And while we were there, actually, we were planning to do like a whole little day in St. Elmo. We were going to go over to a brewery that was like across the street from it. And we had a big moment where we took like a big group of our friends. There's like 7 of us. So we were like staying in like the Naughty Cat lobby. and we're talking about like, okay, where are we going to park at? You know, we're going to have to move our cars. Where's the parking going to be the cheapest at? What's a shortest walk? And the nightcap people, one of the owners was just like, just leave your cars here. He's like, you know, you guys can just do that. I was like, well, you guys are really busy. Are you sure you want to do that? You have other customers coming in. They're like, your customers too. Don't worry about it. So yeah, they let us just keep our cars there for like 4 or 6 hours while you just went out and like did all that fun stuff. And that was so meaningful. Like that was very impactful. And that was even like a part of their products. That was just something that on the spot they thought of.
Yeah. Unreasonable hospitality strikes again. Any final thoughts before we close up?
If you're looking for ideas on things to do for your business or whatever, find a very successful version of your business. Go to their Google reviews, cycle for the 5 stars, and just read through them and see what people thought was impactful enough to leave a 5-star review on. And I think that'll give you some good ideas, especially if it's very equitable to what you're doing. Like if you own a coffee shop and you look up another coffee shop somewhere in a different town or whatever. But I've found that people generally only really leave a review if they had a really good experience or a really bad experience. And sometimes the things that you think will matter don't, and the things you think don't matter do. And finding, as my father taught me growing up, it's better to learn from other people's mistakes instead of your own. But the flip side of that is it's really nice to learn from other people's successes and try and emulate that. So kind of like the cover posting we've done in the past, but your own take on things that people have done that have been so impactful that people have left reviews about it. So I guess that's a little hack on just seeing what people talk about.
I love that. That's a really great one.
So I want to throw back to something that we briefly mentioned at the start, and that is the customer journey and just really thinking through all those steps. If you can, as you're getting ready to start your business, or even like if you already have one and you kind of feel like you're at that stage of like, oh goodness, what am I doing? Really just try to walk through it. Like literally go outside, walk into your business and just think through like, what are the things I'm seeing? Use every sense. Just think about all the things that are going on and how people are feeling. What is it like to get your product? Is that process painful? Look for anything like that you can do to make that better for people.
Love that. For me, I think a big thing I use all the time, whether it's a big long-term planning session or just in the micro, there's a very small thing I don't like, is I will get a sheet of paper out and on one side I'll put what the reality is that I don't like. And then on the other side, I'll put the better version that I dream of. And then I'll ask myself for each one, what's one step that will get me closer to the next version? Or what's the next step that will get me heading in that right direction? And then that's essentially this high impact to-do list that at the end of, I will not only feel really proud of myself that I am being intentional, but also I will actually see the reality of that intention starting to come to be. Nice. So really fun episode, at least for us, on being intentional as an entrepreneur or really anything you're doing. Let us know if you have some great ideas for how to be intentional, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.
Bye.